Well, not many football coaches in Canada, or probably North America for that matter, have coaching careers which last longer than 30 or 35 years. And our guest today has long passed that mark, 39 years as a football coach in both the CFL and Canadian university levels. He had 16 years with the Hamilton Tiger-Cats, including a Grey Cup win in 1999. 23 years in the CIS and U Sport, including head coaching stints at Waterloo and St. FX, defensive coordinator roles at Guelph, Western, and McMaster, played both football and hockey at St. Mary's in Halifax, and it was later property of both the Argos and Edmonton Eskimos. And our guest today is Dennis McPhee, and welcome, sir. It's great to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you very much. It's really awesome to be with you guys.
Now, you know Gary really well. Gary coached a little bit too, from what I understand. How long do you guys go back?
Well, we go back quite a ways. I would say, I obviously knew about Gary before we met. And I knew his reputation, and I knew what he had done both as an athlete. I knew that he had done some things as a baseball player, which I think was his first love. I knew he was an excellent football player, and I knew he coached basketball, and I know after going on several golf outings with him, I knew that I knew the female student athletes at Laurier had the way he coached them too. So I've known Gary probably for I'd say 20 years or so, on and off. We've been through peaks and valleys of our careers together. And I'll tell you one thing, it was a good thing he was just across the way for a little while, I think, for both of us, when he was at Laurier and I was at Waterloo, because it was certainly a great sounding board to bounce things off of, when things were good and when things were bad.
It's a pretty unique situation there in Waterloo, where you've got, not the biggest city in the world, but you've got two very influential universities just down the street from each other.
Well, no question. I know that a lot of our student athletes went across to take some courses at Laurier and vice versa. And, you have a great business school in the purple and gold across the way, and you have a wonderful second and none engineering school, at Waterloo. Everybody was very proud of, what both schools had to offer. As far as I know, a bunch of our student athletes went over to take some business courses there, and I know some Laurier guys came over to Waterloo, so it's all good.
Deke, you should probably mention too that we were part of probably one of the great golf foursomes in CIS football history, with yourself and Brian Towers and Greg Marshall and myself, and we certainly had some fun over the years.
Well, there's no question about that. For me, it was I was surrounded by CIS greatness. Brian Towers' reputation and record is second to none. And I think just in the last two, Mr. Wonderful, Greg, has gone by Brian as far as victories, and he's now the sole owner of the most victories by a CIS coach, and rightfully so. And then of course you're the old war daddy that leads us through there and still beats the hell out of us playing golf. So that's a great foursome. It's great to be. It's one of those, to me, it was one of those natural things that happened by happenstance. It was had a few beers, hit a few golf balls, and then the next thing after that, the friendship developed, and we started, doing a couple of weekends here and there together when we could get together, because of Brian being out west and everything. It worked out real well. It's been a great it's a fearsome foursome for sure.
Hey, Dennis, where'd you grow up? Well, obviously, you were a pretty good hockey player too to be playing some hockey at the university level. But where'd you grow up, and what was your first love in sport?
Oh, well, it's no question it was hockey. I grew up on East Mountain in Hamilton, Ontario. It was a great place to grow up. Some great high schools, both separate and public. And I went to both, and it started out, my brother and I, my dad taking us like every other Canadian kid to the ranks, and fell in love with the sport pretty fast. But I found out after I started growing a little bit, the football became a little bit more natural to me. Maybe the football ran through our family pretty intensely. My dad was a good player, and signed with the Cats when he was ran out of high school. And then my uncle John was the head coach at Cathedral Gales, the power town, for a long time. And then he was a Western grad, and so kind of rubbed off on us, But let's just say that hockey was my first love, but didn't love me as much as I loved it. That's about what happened. So football was a great follow-up to to continue to chase what I originally, to be on a team and be with the guys and compete, and that's the opportunity I got.
Did you play at SMU? Is that where you played? University?
Yeah, I played at St. Mary's University. Yes, sir. Yeah, I was very privileged to, I know everybody, when I recruit kids at university, you want them to come to your school, and you sell the merits of the school that you're. I'll say this: Jeff Reinbold, I heard him say once that, and I believe it. The best school for any young person to go to is the one they go to, because after 2 or 3 years, 98% of the time they don't leave there, and they build relationships there that are lifelong. And so, I went to St. Mary's, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Was Tim Cuppage there when you played?
I think he was there. I just don't remember what year. It was an interesting spot to be at St. Mary's at the time. We had 18 Americans on our team that had come up from the Yankee Conference, and we had a very good team, but we had trouble getting by Bob Vespasiani and John Heward at Acadia, who also had about 18 or 19 Americans. And so subsequently, I think won the national championship twice, I think, and certainly was the best team in our conference at the time. But I mean, ironically, I played my last year of junior hockey in the Nova Scotia Junior Hockey League there, and our captain on our team was also the captain of the Acadia football team, Scott Baker. So ironically, in the off season, a lot of the Acadia Axemen came to blow off some steam, and they stayed with me in residence. And there was the odd road trip we took up to Acadia to run around Wolfville a little bit, which turned out pretty good.
So what's the biggest transition for you going from university to pro football? What was the biggest difference?
As a coach, for sure, the biggest difference was, I think it's what makes you good. That is the fact that at the university level, you have players for 4 years, and you nurture and try and develop them, not just as a student athlete, but also as a person. And, it's neat to do that at the pro level, but you can't get too attached to the players at the pro level because they could be gone, and they're not going to always be there for 4 years. And so it's tough because what makes my personality was I always wanted what was best for the players because I wanted them to go as far as they could. I wanted to be part of that, but it's tough when there's so much competition at the pro level. Like, I mean, it's all about what have you done for me lately, and your personality is that you want what's best for the team, and you want what's best for the player and the student. And the student you can have time, but at the pro level, sometimes it's an apple and a roadmap real quick.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that over, you've been coaching 39 years here. What is the biggest difference in the kids today in 2024 compared to when you started?
Well, like I think certainly, just across the board, doesn't matter what league, they're so much bigger and much more intelligent, much more eager to be good at what they do. And so, it's turned into a 365 degree, 365 day, labor of love for those, whether you're a student athlete or whether you're a professional player. I mean, it used to be, I heard in the old days, different playing in the off season. Don't just dedicate yourself to your sport 365, be a little bit of diversity and branch out and level out a little bit. But I don't know, like there's kids are grinding all the time now, and they, anything that's lateral and peripherally attached to their sport is making their original sport better. So they're either lifting all the time, or they're running all the time, or they're stretching all the time, or they're to maintain, and keep free of injury. So it's a lot more labor intensive, and they're a lot more educated, and there's a lot more information out there for them now, and they're dedicated. I mean, if there's the rarity you have somebody that doesn't have to try that hard and they're just blessed by God and gifted, but for the most part, they're dedicated to their sport and their dream, and they go after it.
Yeah. And you don't see two-sport athletes anymore, do you? Like you were?
First of all, when I got to St. Mary's, I played my last year junior, my freshman year there. And, if it wasn't for Bob Boucher at St. Mary's, the hockey coach who I approached and, said I'd like to at least have him, suited me up, and then, to be, to play against some of the guys I got to play against, it would have happened if it wasn't for Bob Boucher and Brian O'Byrne when Brian O'Byrne took the program over. So if you had something to contribute and you wanted to fit in with the squad and you didn't look out of place, like everybody had a role at that point, right? My role was to defense, to be a right winger and be a 225-pound winger, which was pretty sizable at the time, and bang around with the Dow guys like Paul McLean and the Moncton guys like Charlie Bourgeois. Both ended up playing probably between them, 25 years in the NHL. But I mean, that was an opportunity for me to play in a very small rink and have a bit of an impact on the team and make sure that nobody run our teammates. If they were going to run at our guys, I was going to run it down.
Dennis, can you tell us some of the in football out at SMU who were some of the coaches that had the biggest influence on you? Not just at St. Mary's. I know your experience as well at St. FX. Can you just tell us about some of those gentlemen?
Well, it's up Keith, who was a big influence on us. You know, they'd won the Vanier Cup with a great team in '73. I didn't get there until '77, but he had you know, Angelo Santucci, who had, you know, won 5 Grey Cups in a row with Edmonton. He was a great running back, and Hector Potier and those guys. And so we all went out there to try and do the same. And so Al Keith was big. The guy that recruited me was Jim Clark, who would come up from, you know, he's an Ottawa guy, but he got probably 6 or 7 Florida guys with him. And he had an influence on me. But the biggest influence on me, there was 2 really at St. Mary's. Certainly my position coach, Dougie Wright, was a Navy chief in the Navy. And he was like John Wayne per se. And, you know, you used to go to him and say, it hurts when I go like this. And he'd say, then don't go like that. And, you know, he made me about making a transition from, you know, running back, slot back to linebacker. And he helped me with that. But the biggest influence was Bob Hayes, our athletic director. He was one of the toughest guys I ever met. I mean, he was just dirt tough, and but he was a fair guy. But he didn't take any. He could see right through people. Like he was when he walked in a room that had the big reputations, you know, they were in reverence of him. Like he was a dangerous guy when he was a player, and he didn't take any guff at all when he was an athletic director, and he would breathing down my neck 24/7. And you know, but for the grace of God, if I didn't have, you know, he was a great man. Yeah, he was a great man, and I loved him.
As a football, for me, the Edmonton Eskimos were my team, eh? Back in the day when they won the 5 Grey Cups, I was a big fan of the Edmonton Eskimos. But just what, you know, what for you is some of the moments of a Grey Cup that you go through? Like, how do you work to get ready for a Grey Cup game?
Well, you know, that I was there for the 5th Grey Cup in Edmonton. I didn't play any games, so I didn't get a ring, but on the sidelines with the team when they did it with another receiver named Ned Armour. And but I was lucky enough as a coach to be in 4 Grey Cups as a coach, and we won one, which was good. And the preparation is immense. I mean, it's a hell of an experience. You know, like, but you know, you have to have really qualified guys to get you prepared for it. Just stuff like Coach. We had Don Southern and Rod Lancaster, so they'd been in 250 Grey Cups between them, and so you know, there's the travel, there's getting your family situated first. They made sure we got the family tickets and everything situated first, and then you know, as a player or as a coach, you want to get distractions out of the way. That was big. Coach Lancaster's big thing. No distractions game day. No distractions. Emphatic about that. So you handle the first getting your family arranged first, and then that took a day and a half, and he didn't want to hear about it after that. And then the rest of it was get out to wherever the game was at. You know, go through your week of practice, stay focused, and get ready, and no distractions game day. That was him. So so you learn a lot from that. You know, I mean, I'm sure Greg Marshall at Western learned a ton of that stuff from when he was in his Grey Cups and stuff. And the fact that he gets the Western Mustangs probably prepared when they're in big ball games the same way. I mean, I'm sure he learned a bit from you know, Darwin and from Larry, but I'm sure he learned a lot from being an Eskimo too.
Deke, how about? I'd like to hear a little bit about. I know you coach with Coach Marshall at Western, and also with the Tiger-Cats when Greg got the head job in Hamilton. Maybe you can share some of your thoughts and experiences with Greg.
Yeah, well, Greg and I have had a love-hate relationship since we were in high school. Like, I remember at the Tiger-Cat All-Star Camp, when we were in high school, he was a fullback and I was a tight end at the time, and he was a good player then, boy. I mean, he was. So I've known him. I think he was coming out of Guelph then. He was a force to be reckoned with then, and so ironically, we've been kind of following each other around for probably 30 or 40 years, and our family, our wives are, his wife Joan and my wife Joanne are friends, and he's got, I was around all three of his boys when I was coaching at Western there for a little while. Like, I mess with him as often as possible, so I would spend the funny stuff, like when we golf. If he's not looking, I'll kick his ball in the bushes a little bit. Gary's seeing that, or I'll step on it, and it's becomes a fried egg, and he can't see that well that far away anymore. So I can't believe I hit it over here. I go, damn, me neither. Like, I mean, it must have hit a sprinkler head or something. I don't understand. You're playing so well, but it's over there. I kind of mess with him that way, and I do everything to Greg that you can do without, going to jail. I mean, I don't let the air out of his tires or anything, but I do mess with him as often as possible. So, and he tries to get me back, but it's always a day late and $1 short. So Gary and I just laugh, but I mean, he did a great job in his freshman year. He was coach of the year, and I think just when they decided they were going to make a change, they were emphatic on it. Like, I mean, it was just as much his decision. It was just as much his decision as it was the management. And ultimately, I think he just looked at. I have 3 little kids, and Western. I have a legacy. I could start at Western, and they mutually agreed to part. But I'll tell you, I remember that he called me on the phone, and he said that it's Bob Young and Ron Katz want to see me. I said, okay. He goes, like, now? I go, well, it's like 11:30 at night. He goes, yeah, I know. What do you think? I said, well, it's not good, and so, we drove him. I immediately called Joe Sardo, who was Greg's right-hand man at Western, because I knew Joe would have some good advice, and I knew probably he'd need a little bit of a foundation to stand on when he came out of the hotel. It was at the Sheraton downtown. So, we were waiting for him when he came out, and made sure that he packed up that night and got out of that building as fast as possible. And so he went from coach of the year to getting the Knight of Hearts on to Western, where and the rest is history. He can't lose because he wins. The guy gets up, and they're already up 7 points when he gets out of bed. So, that's great. He's done a wonderful job there, and he's just another guy at that school. That, I mean, when you think of the guys that they've had at that school coaching that football team, of course, the great coaches that came before Darwin, and now Greg, who's passed them all. So it's pretty special. But just with Greg, it's always been when it was supposed to get serious, it got real serious, and when it And when it was time to have fun, we had fun. And it's one of those things, Greg's one of the 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys, and wouldn't matter where it was, or what I was doing or what was important to me at the time. If he called and said he needed me, I'd be there 100%.
Good. Hey, talk about your own head coaching experiences. You had a couple of them, one at St. FX and one at Waterloo. As a guy who, spent the majority of your career as an assistant or a coordinator, how did you like being the head guy?
Well, at St. FX, and I enjoyed Waterloo. It was great opportunities given to me. St. FX was a historic experience for me because, I was, St. FX is almost like, it's almost like the little sister of Western, during the days of Don Loney at St. FX, they made the cover of Time magazine, niche. They wailed the tar out to everybody, and I, as Gary knows, came up to Waterloo area and beat Waterloo Lutheran back in the day in the national title. So to be around this historic significance of that school, that town where people bleed blue and white, and Don Loney was there, and just to be around him, and I could tell you a real funny story about X real quick. It was I got ejected and suspended for a game against Blake Nill and Steve Samara at St. Mary's. And they were undefeated at the time, and I think we ended up 6-2 that year. Anyways, long story short, I got suspended by Tom Kendall because we had played a former Tiger-Cat Grey Cup, a teammate of mine, Mount A, and what happened was we were up 35-0 or something, and at the end of the game, they came over and interviewed me. And I just said, I was being funny, tongue in cheek, but they didn't think it was funny. And I said, they said, "What do you think about the game, Coach McPhee, the reporter?" And I said, "Well, it was pretty good. We got some cleanup to do on our side of the ball if we want to get by St. Mary's." I said there was enough penalties called and there was enough orange flags thrown on the team. Well, I get back, and Tom Kendall was like, "There's zero tolerance on officiating in the league." And so a couple of days went by, they decided to suspend me for that. So subsequently, I had to elevate Rob Kitchen to be the, who was our special teams guy and better head coach. I said, "You take the team over." So they sold a bunch of grocery bags at the grocery store with my face on it. It said, "Fine Coach Waldo." And I kind of hid somewhere and had all the coaches on cell phone. I won't say where I was, but I got Don Loney to come and coach the team. And he was 82 years old. He died 2 years later. But, he said, I said, "Coach, I want you to come and coach the team, And so he came, and he was in his naval uniform, his blue and gray slacks and his Navy jacket and everything. And he got to talking to the players, and he said, "A long time ago, I thought I was going to go into this big speech about the mighty X-Men from," but then he just ripped up the paper and looked at the kids and said, "Oh, the hell with it. Get out there and kick their ass." And so they all lost it because he was a legend. They ran out on the field, and we beat St. Mary's in the Antigonish mud 11-8. And I know there was time left on the clock, and some player go, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." I remember Matt Heelan caught a pass, and it was raining, and they looked like they're going to kick a field goal, but I think they decided there's 14 seconds left to go. We can run the ball and get it in the middle of the field. Well, they did, and suddenly the clock ran out. Bang, and they pulled the gun, and Blake was having a heart attack, and he threw Steve Sabera, the offensive coordinator, over the goalpost because of time violation. We won, and I just remember Coach Loney. Coach Loney being surrounded, after not coaching for 50 years, being surrounded by a bunch of young guys that only knew him as a football legend, and he held court with those kids. I'll tell you what, it was one of the greatest things I ever saw. And so that was pretty good. And I just left. I got a little bit big for my britches. Greg got the head in Hamilton. I wanted some things, for the athletes at St. of X that, President Riley said that they were not going to happen for at least 6 years. And Greg just got the head coaching job at Hamilton and asked me to come back and said he would move my family and this, that, and the other. So I went in and resigned, but, I kind of regret that a little bit looking back because, place, was a little impetuous at the time, I think. But I mean, it worked out. Things happen for a reason. I still go back there. I still have friends there. I still do, I do 3 radio shows there a year, one Grey Cup, one Vanier, one Super Bowl with Kenny Farrell at CJFX, and Gary Waterman, played for me, and he's the head coach there now, and he's done a phenomenal job. And then moved over to Waterloo, and Judy McCrae gave me an opportunity, a wonderful lady. The problem with Judy McCrae was she left 6 months after I got there, and I really liked her. And I, it was, it's hard. It's hard to start over with a new boss sometimes. And, but it was a great experience. And, we had nowhere to go but up. And, we had some great players. We had Jordan Verdillier in the country, and we had, a great coaching staff, Sully in the secondary, and Marshall Binghamton did a good job, for us. And we ended up bringing Don Southern in for a while, on Hank Alisic, and we were trending. It was, the kids were valiant. Henry Vibby, those guys. We had some good kids that you just have to get the best kids, but if you can get them, prepared, and you can get them to believe, you can get them to do things that they weren't sure they could do. And so I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything at all. It's just like Jeff Reinbold said, the best school for you to go and coach at is the one you coach at, and the best school for you to go play at is the one you play at, because it's all memories. So you're responsible for, you're responsible for young people, and you got to be aware of it all times. And that game itself, there's a reason you only play football once a week or once every 10 days, because it beats the crap out of you, and it takes a while to prepare, and the kids get the hell beat out of them. So you have to appreciate what they do.
Yeah. I know. I guess we'd be remiss here if we didn't at least touch on some of that 2010 steroid thing at Waterloo. When did that all blow up for you? Is that something you woke up one morning and all of a sudden everything hit the fan, or how did that all work out for you?
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It was a process, and I think the school took a stand on what they felt they had to do at the time, and there was 5 or 6 kids that, at the time it was a mistake. They knew it, but the bottom line, here's what really, we had to go speak with the Hoot Foundation came in and helped us, and Bob Copeland did a great job, and trying to get everything, right the ship and everything, but But here's the bottom line I'll say about that was, I think at the time, young people thought that if they got caught doing something that, and, of course it didn't, it affected the whole team and it affected the school. And so, sometimes you make decisions that affect more than yourself. And that's what happened. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's something, people have opinions about. But the bottom line was, it's like like I said before, it's ripple effects, and ripple effects go out, and they're gonna run into everything as they branch out. And you can't always be sure of who it affects, or what it affects, or why it affects. But the bottom line is, it's going to affect more than you. And so my advice would be, you're going to get tested, that there could be other people affected by your decision, more than just your senses. Is a team game. Make sure you remember your teammates. Remember your teammates. Remember the color jersey you're wearing, and remember the school you're playing for. And, remember that there's more people involved than just you. And that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, that year that the team was, I guess, suspended, you guys still played exhibition games throughout that whole season, didn't you?
Well, that's kind of how Gary and I, started. Like, he knew that I was struggling, and, Laurier is just around the corner. So I would, wander over to his office in the house there. And, we would look for, I would look for, try to help steer, the young warriors clear of what we'd run into. And people don't realize, we played a roster when we played those exhibition games. We did get some controlled scrimmage stuff in. We did. And it was in an effort to keep the kids focused and try and, give them a reason to believe. But, in the end, they were allowed to transfer without penalty. And some of the kids did that. And some kids, even though they were allowed to transfer and play else, they transferred back the following year, which I was very proud of some of those guys. And the other thing I was very proud of was we dressed, I think, 35 freshmen when we came back into the league, and got the tar wheeled out of us. People, they were bigger, stronger, faster than our 35 freshmen. But I'll tell you, those kids stood up to everybody, and I was real proud of them.
The thing I found with that whole thing, though, was that it was a time when, we had Ben Johnson went through that whole thing, and then your team was hit with that also. It's just, there was so much going on. I didn't know if that was I could see the reaction that they had for that. But I remember looking back at it going, it was, to me, it looked like they went way past where they had to go with it to send the message and to set the penalties. And we did a lot of stuff in regards to, with me and officiating in hockey and all that. There was so many little things that would go on in regards to how they would react to it in those days when it came to steroids, that today I don't even know if they even know if there's steroids even out there or what they're doing differently. But it just seemed like it wasn't fair to me, honestly, Dennis. This wasn't fair.
Well, Lance, I'll say this to you, brother. It was, there was a lot of phone calls over that, and people made decisions. I don't, much higher pay scale than me. But the bottom line was, I didn't agree with the decision, at all. And I didn't think you should punish the whole team because of a few kids. But I'll tell you one thing. I said about 5 or 6 minutes before this, I said the bottom line was, though, Lance, they didn't think that it would affect that anybody did. So maybe in retrospect, as I get older, if it can get to one young person, and it doesn't just have to be performance enhancing drugs. If you can get to one person, decision making in a dressing room, in an arena, in the basement of the dorm they're living in, doesn't matter. If it makes them reflect and say, you know what, be a true teammate. This could affect the whole team, the coaching staff, and the school. Maybe I should think about moving in a different direction. And certainly, whether you agree with Waterloo's decision or not, 10, 15 years later, maybe there's a student athlete somewhere going, God dang, I don't want to be part of that. That's when the lesson was well put.
Well, you're a bigger man than I am, Dennis, because I just think it was something that they just went way past the point of no return with that, and taking a whole program away for like over years.
Sometime, Lance, we could talk about it.
Yeah, well, you handled it very well, Dennis. I got to tell you, you came through it really well, and I commend you on how you looked after everything in that regard.
That Deke, you did that.
Clothing is they got Chris Bertoy up there now, coaching that football team, and Chris is a smart. I worked with him at Western, and he's a good family man, and he's a smart football coach, and he's rugged, rough around the edges individual. He's a good leader, so I look for Waterloo to keep going forward because I got a lot of faith in Chris Bertoya.
Deke, you did a wonderful job at the time, and I know we spoke a number of times as you were going through that, and I think that it was a very, very strong punishment, and I do agree with Lance. Perhaps more than what was needed to deliver the message, but as you said, if down the road one young man looks at it and decides that perhaps I should think twice before I get involved with some drugs and so on, that if it's going to affect others, maybe I should stay away from it. And I think hopefully that's happened, and as you say, that program has come back, it's bounced back, and good for them. I'm sure it wasn't easy in the beginning, but you were certainly a big part of holding that together. So good for you.
Thanks, Coacher.
Hey, Dennis, was there one player that sort of really stands out for you during your university days? Not so much talking about the pros, but a kid who I don't know, just went above and beyond for his teammates, or something that you're just really proud of as you look back on your entire career now, and that one kid sort of stands out?
Well, yeah, I'll say this: the first one that I've been, you want to be a good coach, get good players. If you want to be a great coach, get great players, and otherwise it's not going to happen. And so I've been blessed, as all of us were, to have great kids. I had some great ones, and I had our share of all Canadians and pros, and our share of guys that became great parents and great dads and all that stuff. But I'd say probably the one that comes to mind first, for sure, without question, is Mike O'Shea. So having Mike O'Shea, our Dan McNally's Guelph team in in 90 to 93. Yeah, he had a great cast around him, and there was about 5 or 6 kids on that defense that went to the pros. But principally the one that quiet, tough, very bright, super athletic, and dedicated was Mike O'Shea, 100%. He was a great young man. He's obviously his career that he's gone on to, what he's done as a coach in Winnipeg is phenomenal. And, he walks the walk and talks the talk. He's innovative. He is a player. He trained a little bit differently than the rest of the kids at the time. He did what he was supposed to with us, but he also danced to his own drummer a little bit, and he was smart. And he went to the Detroit Lions before he went to Hamilton. So he damn near made them. And so he's certainly, I would say, Mike O'Shea. If you had to, I've been lucky to have a bunch of them, but I'm sure those, if they're all in a room, they probably all say, yeah, we're all good. We all did good. We all got Grey Cup rings. We all played in the pros. We all got great families, but the best one of us was probably Mike O'Shea.
Well, no surprise when you got that much many good things to say about him. No surprise when you look at the career he's had since the early 90s. It's been phenomenal.
Dennis, I know there are two coaches that meant a great deal to you, and maybe you can share some thoughts on Coach Bernie Custis and Coach Ronnie Lancaster.
Well, thank you, Coach. That's a great lead-in. Well, first of all, Bernie gave me my first college job. Paid me $100, and I went there as a walk-on guest coach and asked me if I'd like to come and help out a little bit. I was coaching at Glendale High School with Dennis Griffin, who gave me my first coaching job, and then I went and coached training camp with the Marauders, and then Bernie came to me at the end. He said, Dennis, man, I got to tell you something, man. The kids have come to my office, man, and they'd like you to stay around. Now, I'm not sure what I can pay you. If anything at all, a jacket, they might get you an outfit, and if you'd like to stick around, we'd like to have you. And it kind of went on from there. So, Bernie was influential to me on the field and off. He was, I listened to his counsel all the time. Myself and Tony Gabriel were did the eulogy at his funeral. He had so much many people. It was incredible to watch, and there are so many players. It was unbelievable. It's always been unbelievable how many people hold him in reverence, and it's kind of like Bernie kind of reminds me of Coach Custis. At the end of To Kill a Mockingbird, they say to Atticus Finch's children, "Stand up, your father's passing."
That's a great movie, that one. I love that movie with Seth.
Same, yeah. It's the same I felt with. It's the same when Bernie walked by. Stand up and take your hat off because you were in the presence by. And then, I grew up kind of with Ronnie David Lancaster. We were at coaches together at Mac. And so I got to know his father pretty well. Like, you know, he always caught me sneaking in his fridge. And so every time he seemed to come in from work, he was working for the CBC at the time. I always had my face in his fridge. He says, every time I come in this house, you got your face in my fridge. Well, years later, he hired me as a coach. And but before all that, you know, Ronnie and I would sit with, we called him Digger, because he was a big fan of Digger Phelps. And so we would sit at his kitchen table, and he would go over all the coverages with us, and he would show Ronnie how to beat these different coverages on you know, tabletop. And you want, coach, you know, like, you know, I want to disguise this. How do you make this look like something else? And he said, well, as a quarterback, this used to give me trouble. And so can you imagine being a knucklehead Canadian kid, you know, going into a second year at McMaster, sitting at the table with a Hall of Famer? You get hired by a Hall of Fame guy in Bernie Custis. You get hired. Now you're sitting at the Hall of Fame coffee table with a chain smoking coffee drinking wonderkind who's teaching you the bare minimum of what you can understand because he's way smarter than everybody else. And you know, and it didn't just end there. There was a few times in my life as a youngster, and when I say youngster, under 28, that I might have, you know, rock and rolled a little bit and did some things I probably shouldn't have, and spent, you know, let's just say this, there was more than once that he came down to where I was living, and it, you know, at 2 a.m, we'd be talking and he'd be saying, you're messing up this, you got to do this and you got to fix that, or you ain't gonna make it. And for that man to do, you know, he was just, you know, like, when you're around guys where all the players, it's hard to be loved by as a coach. They're not your friends, you know, you're their coach and all that other stuff. But everybody loved Bernie and everybody loved Coach Lancaster. And that was, you know, and I see some of the similar things in with Gary, with all the guys that come back to see him at Laurier, and I see a lot at Western with Greg. I mean, those coaches all had one common denominator: the guys that played for them never forgot them. And so, you know, well, I'm not doing it anymore. But
Dennis, what's the future holding for you at this point? I know you've had the last few years there at Guelph as defensive coordinator, and where are you going from here?
Well, I guess I was retired there for a while, but you know, I talked to Steph Fantastic at Mac a little bit about maybe him and I hooking up and him helping me out a little bit. You know, maybe down the road that happens, you know, because Steph knows how I feel about him. I think he's one of the smartest guys. He's intellectually, like, he's a savant pretty much. You know, he's bright as hell, and he was a hell of a player. But it's not going to happen this year, I don't think, with Steph, or, you know, maybe down the road it does. But, you know, and I talked to Steve Samara at St. Mary's, maybe going back to my old school, because my Joanne and I bought another house in Nova Scotia. So she's from there. And so, you know, I think that's probably where we're going to end up. My two sons are not coming home this year. One plays football at St. Mary's, and one plays hockey there. So they got jobs on campus this year. So, you know, Joanne was athlete of the year at St. Mary's as a soccer player. So they're not coming home. So it looks like everything's pointing east eventually. So maybe Steve Samara and St. Mary's down the road. Saskatchewan on May 1st, be with Scott Flory and Warren Musica, do some stuff with their football team a little bit, and see Brian, see Coach, you know, and maybe back in the OUA somewhere, like for a little while. We'll see. There's a couple things there I haven't committed totally yet, but there's a couple options there, and that's always helped me. So maybe I'll go back and help him. We'll see where it ends up.
Be nice to get one more year to get that 40th year of coaching on your resume.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, can't believe it. It's like I talked to a friend of mine, Kit Lathrop, who was a heck of a pass rush guy down on the States, NFL guy, and was the defense coordinator in Edmonton for a while and stuff. And he said once in a while, like I was at Western for their spring ball, and I called Kit up on the phone and let him talk to the kids in the defensive line, and he said when we were, I think he had the kids, in awe about how to think about certain things as a defensive player and a defensive lineman. And so after the kids left, he and I were still on the phone. I said, I'm doing pretty good, And he said, well, just remember, don't let the old man in. And I said, what? And he said, don't let the old man in. And I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, like we're getting older, Dennis. He's a year older than me. I'm 66 now. And he said, don't let the old man in. As soon as you let the old man in, it's over. So, keep thinking like you can still get her done and still do things. And so in answer to your question, I'm going to try not to let the old man in.
Dennis, I'm really hopeful that you land somewhere this season, and I'm very, very confident that if you do, you're going to make that team better. You're going to make that defense better, and you're going to make some young men better football players and better young men. So I hope very much to see you on the sideline this year.
Appreciate it.
Well, this has been terrific, Dennis. This has been a fun hour catching up with you. You must just feel real proud as you look back on what's been a great career here and all the young men that you've helped develop.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I'm very proud of those guys, and the whole thing for me was the look on their face. It happened. I was coaching church baseball when I was about. My best friend asked me. He said, "Look, I'm coaching this baseball team. Can you help me?" And I said, "Okay." So I went out there for the summer, and I had never coached baseball, but I showed them how to do a simple rundown from first to second. And I was about 18 years old, maybe 17, and couldn't practice. And they used to, let the ball do the work, this kind of thing, and run the guy down. We'll involve the whole infield and the catcher, and we'll let the ball do the work, and we worked on it, and they looked at me like I had six heads. And then one day they picked the guy off and they caught him in a rundown. They did it exactly like you practiced. And they looked over at the bench. I didn't have to say anything. They just looked over at the bench face and was like, "Coach, it worked exactly like you said it would." They didn't say anything, but they looked like they were so happy they'd executed it. And it worked like we practiced. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew that you have a chance to make a difference in people if you can get a hold of them through athletics and get them some success. Maybe they'll believe in what you say, and then you can get them to have success away from the field or away from I've been very blessed with the players I've had. I've been blessed with my wife, Joanne, and our kids here. My two boys have done very well at St. Mary's, and my daughter's going in the master's program, Katie, at Guelph. So, So, I've got nothing to complain about. I go tomorrow. I had a good run.
Hey, Dennis, thanks for joining us. This has been terrific.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
great to meet you, Dennis, for sure. Absolutely. It's quite an honor.
Been a pleasure having you on here, Deke.
I'll see you down the road, boys.